Hi, everybody. Welcome along. This is Adam Chambers, the president of Nurse Recruitment Experts. Today, I'm going to be telling you my 5 tips for texting nurses. Now, this will be in a specifically recruitment talent acquisition context. So, if you're seeking medical advice, look elsewhere. This is for recruitment. I'm going to be brief, but I want to be succinct and help you develop a texting strategy that bears in mind that nurses have a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of employers demanding their attention, and they don't have time to waste with long messages and ob- obfuscated messages from recruiters. So I'm going to help you sort of implement some strategies to make your nurse recruitment a lot clearer and the text you send more understandable. Um, Matthew says, does this apply for romantic interest in nurses? Unfortunately, not, Matthew. But if you want to do that webinar, feel free, and I'm sure some of our audience will be interested. So I'm going to jump into it. The first one is voice. So when I mention voice, I mean whenever they open that message, what are they hearing? Do they think that they're interacting with a robot, or does it come across as a real person on the other end of the text? So there's a couple of things that you don't want to be. You don't want to be an emotionless rock. So remember that nurses are humans too, although you might spend your time looking at numbers on the screen and names on the screen, and they seem a bit dehumanized. But yes, like they have emotions, feelings like the rest of us, and you have to consider that whilst it's important to be professional, it's also important to develop relationships with the people that you're trying to recruit. So when I say don't be a rock, I mean let some of your personality come out. Um, don't have to make all the spellings and the words as they would be in the Oxford Dictionary. You can use shorthand and you can use spaces between paragraphs and make it seem natural, as if you've taken time to type that as you would to a friend or a family member. Moving on, don't be a robot. So by that, I mean don't be static and ensure that you're responding to them again as you would with someone that you have a connection with already. Don't be taking yourself too seriously and um, getting all kind of concerned about how you're going to respond. Just let it naturally flow, and nurses will connect with you better. And then also, don't be a stock recruiter. Got this from a stock photo website. And it's all right the first time, but then the second time, it's just obvious that it's a posed photo. And you don't want to have them getting the impression that you're just a corporate robot who comes out with stock responses to their questions. So I have some examples here of a type of conversational voice that we've used in our agency, Nurse Recruitment Experts. We try to keep the messages short, so you can see here that we ask them a question, and then we give them a chance to respond back, yes or no. We also had the 3-letter abbreviation of thanks. And if this conflicts with what your brand's trying to do, then leave it. But we find if you can keep things short and use some abbreviations, then it sets you aside from everyone else who's texting in bulk and trying to be all I'm a recruiter about it. You want to come across as a real person, text like real people do. Here's another one. This one where we said a little bit of something that's new. So we've improved our compensation package, open to hearing more. The difference here is we're assuming that this person's already in our database, so we're bringing something that's an update to them in order to get their attention. And the last one, for example, for nice, it says still in ER and open to a more flexible, independent work schedule. Let me know where you stand, and then give them an option to respond with a number. So you notice we're not signing them all off at the bottom, and we're kind of varying it up with the punctuation there. And that's just to try and break the patterns of what everyone else is trying to do and stand out. So the second part is scale. So scale is useful because you don't have to always be having one-to-one conversations with nurses. You can actually go into your ATS and reactivate hundreds or even thousands of previous candidates with text. And in the description for this webinar, I mentioned a stat and touting that text recruitment is many times more effective than email in terms of getting opens and responses. And the great thing about it is you can do it on scale and get responses on scale rather than just sending out on scale and not getting responses on scale. I have a question that I'd like you to consider. What is the difference between personalization and segmentation? If you think you know the answer, put it in the chat. For me, personalization is whenever you're having a one-to-one conversation with an individual, and what you say in that conversation uses what you know about them. So if you're talking to a nurse and you know that they want to move from Miami to Orlando, you're putting that into the messaging. Whereas segmentation is you're still speaking to them using what you know about them, but it's on a larger scale and you're speaking more to a group. So, say you are in Orlando and you've been doing a campaign to try and get nurses down from the chilly Northeast during winter. That is a segment of a group that is interested in potentially moving for weather. And the content that you put into your message is going to talk about the weather because you segmented that group into that topic. So, whenever you're working on scale, sending text blasts to hundreds or maybe thousands of nurses, bear in mind that it's useful to split them up into different segments. It could be nurses that applied in the last 3 months, and then nurses that applied in the last 6 to 12 months, and then everybody else. It could be by specialty, and it could be by nurses that previously worked with you and then nurses that haven't previously worked with you. Doing this helps you stand out once again and make it seem that you've considered to the nurse what their actual needs and interests are before reaching out. And it'll help provoke more responses and ultimately generate more conversations. So, whenever you're speaking to individuals, try and make it personal. Use things that you know about them to strike up conversation or continue conversation. And if it's on scale, then segment nurses into different groups depending on their demographics or their previous interactions with your organization. Next, we have timing. Timing is the key. I had a look on Google and it said that the best time to send SMS marketing messages is between 1 to 5 p.m. And I would like to quash that for nursing because I think whenever we're recruiting nurses, it's a little bit different than trying to sell product. You have to consider at what time of the day are they going to be busy and working and not able to respond to you, and what time of the day are they going to be more available. For nurse recruitment experts, we've taken the shifts that nurses typically work. Now, this will obviously be different from facility to facility and area to area, but broadly, you have the day shift, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., the evening shift, 3 p.m. to 11, the night shift, 11 to 7, and then you have 12-hour shifts going from 7 to 7 p.m. and then 7 to 7 a.m. Now, whenever we were coming up with a strategy for sending our text blasts, we looked at where is the crossover between shifts that nurses are going to be coming off work or just about to go into work or not working at all. Because the best time to get a response is seconds to 1 minute after you sent the text. That's when you're most likely to get somebody replying to you. So we identified that morning is the best crossover because you have people that worked an evening shift are not working. Night shifters might have just came off and before they go to sleep, they're on their phone or they sleep in the afternoon. And then you include nurses who are on their days off, mothers who have kids at school, and then the 12-hour shifters. So, in our experience for nursing, morning is the best time to text and indeed call them to get engagement and responses. Now I'm going to talk about the channels that you use. So there is a myriad of tools out there that you can send your text through. A lot of recruiters of nurses are still using their cell phone, and I would like to encourage them to try and move it away from that for a couple of reasons. And the first one is it's hard to track statistics and understand what's working and what isn't working. I just mentioned that we're able to identify the best times for reaching out based on our data and then comparing that to the real world split between shifts. I think if you can't get that and it's hard with cell phones, information can be deleted and it isn't generally tracked on a dashboard. A phone's not going to really feed into a broader platform in order for decision makers to see the effectiveness, then you lose sight of the bigger picture. And it's hard to look at what recruiters are doing and understand how to make them more efficient and productive. There are a few options I would recommend instead. The first one is what we do, and that's through your applicant tracking system. So if you're not currently doing it, have a look with your vendor to see if they offer texting, and if not, consider how can you either bring another platform in that integrates, or next time you renew, look around for other vendors that can integrate texting, because you'll have it in all in one place, and you're able to segment groups within the ATS, and it just all works together better in the marketing mix. There's also standalone platforms that probably do integrate as well. RecText, for example, that are worth searching for. Have a look on Google recruitment texting platforms, and you'll see a lot. But I think the channel is important, and it's better to do it on a dedicated platform or app over a cell phone. My last tip is put calls to action in your texts. So this is the one area that I would say differs from the more natural me to you personable style. You wouldn't really say, if you're asking your husband what they want to eat, click here to order now. It's going to be a more flowing conversation. And with nurses, I have a few examples of what's worked for us. The reason that it's different is because we're trying to persuade someone who doesn't have an extremely high level of interest in applying or working with you to take a small step towards doing that. So an incremental step is what you want. And that's why it's better to guide them into that rather than leaving it up to chance. A few that have worked for us are if you get them to click here and to speak with you, so they can click on a booking link to respond with a number. You list the options. So 1, I'm interested; 2, not now; 3, no thanks. And then if they say 1, you can call them. You can say respond yes. If you want to learn more, respond no, and then you're just letting them respond with 3 letters or 2 letters. And another one which particularly works well on closing off conversations that don't seem to be going anywhere is, I haven't heard back from you, so I'll assume a career move isn't a priority right now. I believe if you search the golden email, you'll see this same phrasing used in email outreach for marketers, and it's quite effective because somebody might be passively viewing what you see and perhaps interested one day. If you draw a line under it and say, essentially, I'm not going to communicate with you anymore if I don't get a response, then you'll get closure at the very least. And sometimes they will give you a reason why they haven't been responding. So those are my 5 tips. I'll recap. Number 1 is voice. Don't be a robot, a rock, or a stock person. Come across as a personable recruiter and let them know who you are. It's not as a personality, not only as a professional. Consider what scale you're working at. So, one to one, try and personalize it. Use what you know about them as individuals. If it's one to many, consider segmenting people into groups depending on their connection with you. Timing is important. We have identified that the morning from 8 to 11 crosses over best of typical nurse shifts. Channel, better not to do it on cell phones. Try and work through your ATS or use a dedicated recruitment texting platform. And finally, include calls to action so you're able to guide people through the incremental steps in your recruiting process and make it easy for them to do what you want them to do. So, thank you ever so much for joining. I appreciate you listening in and your contributions. And if you want to engage with us in the future, you can go to the Nurse Recruitment Experts LinkedIn page. We'll be putting our future events on there. I've got one coming up next week with Brandy Fines. We're going to be talking about nurse recruitment strategies, as always. And you can also follow me, Adam Chambers, on LinkedIn for some of my own tips and tricks around nurse recruitment. So thanks for joining, and I hope you have a great weekend.